The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
Okay, let's go.
Hey everybody, I am back. It's RayD's, and this is episode number 4 of the Deep Shallow Dive, the 712 edition. Again, just for those that are new to the pod, the 712 is going to be 10 minutes or less, and it's going to be talking about a current event topic or something that I want to plant the seed in your head for a later Deep Shallow Dive. And then our normal DSDs, based on an audience poll, we're going to keep those to about 30 minutes. So anyway, today I wanted to do something that honestly I was going to do probably in a couple months, but I've had so many people text me and DM me, and a few people even called me, that I thought, all right, you know what? I will go ahead and do this now. And that is, I'm going to explain to you guys how the heck I started and launched a podcast in under 5 days. I really have had a lot of people so interested in understanding the process and all that. And anybody that knows me knows that I am absolutely somebody that loves to share learnings. And, you know, if I've spent 50 hours figuring something out, I would love to save you those 50 hours and share that with you so it can get you going a lot quicker. Before we jump into that, just a real quick recap on a couple of the previous episodes. If you want to understand anything about the new BRICS alliance, which is the coalition formed between Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, along with newly inducted countries Saudi Arabia, Iran, the UAE, and then 3 others. There's a pod on that, and then, or I should say, there's a 712 on that. And then another super interesting topic, to be honest, is the central bank digital currencies, the CBDCs. So if you want to get a solid top line on that, there's a 712 on that as well. Okay, so how the heck did I just start up a podcast? Well, I will tell you what, I have utilized so many amazing platforms and tools, and especially when it comes to artificial intelligence, AI, not to be confused with the original AI, Allen Iverson. Quick side note, this is funny. Somebody posted something, I think it was on Instagram, where they were like, AI to take 300,000 jobs away over the next 5 years. And then people commented below, they were like, man, why is he doing that? Anyway, so I've really utilized some really, really cool platforms, and I'm going to share all that with you and let you know what I used for what and how I did it. Obviously, the first thing you've got to do is come up with the name of your podcast and then really put some thought into what it is you want to talk about and what it is you want to discuss. Because I will tell you, you know, it's pretty easy to crank out 1 episode or 2 episodes or whatever. But when you think about putting out constant content, even for me, you know, this is episode number 4. And I am looking forward to episode 4,000. You know, I can't say I've got 4,000 of them in the queue, but I probably already have at least 65 episodes that are in the queue. They're written down. I've put them in an iPhone note. I've fleshed them out a little bit with a little bit of a description to what each episode talks about. So I think the beginning thing you've got to do is really decide, are you ready to commit the time to this? Are you ready to commit, you know, the brain power as well as, you know, just the time to do it? And if so, do you have a continuity of things that you're looking forward to and willing to talk about? The other thing is, and this is probably the most important thing, but, you know, do you enjoy it? Are you going to enjoy this process? I mean, I love it. I absolutely love it. So for me, there's business aspects to this, but it's also a tremendous creative outlet. You know, it gives me something creative that I'm truly looking forward to doing on a daily basis. So you have to ask yourself all those questions and really do a heart-to-heart with yourself before you jump in. For me, that answer was obviously yes. And so I embarked on the plan of putting this together. You know, obviously, you can research the heck out of things these days. You can Google how to start a podcast. There's probably, 15, 20 YouTube videos I watched on various folks talking about how to start a podcast. Obviously, I read a ton about how to start a podcast. But I will tell you, my greatest resource was this new kid on the town, this new kid on the block, I should say, and his name is ChatGPT. So I went into ChatGPT and I started to dialogue with ChatGPT. And so I started to prompt ChatGPT by saying, I want to start a podcast, so can you please help me understand all of the steps logistics-wise, as well as then anything else I need to know to effectively and efficiently start a podcast? Quick side note, and this is not an advertisement, more just a suggestion. So if you have not played around with ChatGPT yet, honestly, I highly recommend you do. You know, a lot of people want to resist technology, but it's incredibly easy to use. There's a free version, and the way I describe it to people is, as complicated as it is, probably under the hood, so to speak, when you are looking to use it, it's you, your keyboard, and a dialog box where you type in prompts. And utilizing ChatGPT is basically like having a conversation with a super smart friend. And once you understand how to talk to it and how to prompt it, honestly, the results are pretty incredible. And the efficiency and the time savings is what really benefited me. Okay, so after I got a nice little roadmap from ChatGPT, basically I had to pick a hosting platform. The hosting platform is probably the most important thing because that is the central area that you load up all your episodes, and then from there, those episodes get syndicated out to everybody else. So I'm a big search and reapply guy, and the biggest podcast going right now is the Joe Rogan Experience. And so he's on Spotify. And so I thought, I wonder if Spotify has a hosting platform. And it turns out they do. Their platform is called Spotify for Podcasters. And that's who I ended up going with. And it's been incredible. So my host, so to speak, is Spotify for Podcasters. And that's where I load up all these episodes, including this one. From there, I've linked out to everywhere else, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio. You basically have to open up accounts on all those. And again, they're all free. And then once you have that, you take what's called an RSS feed, which it basically just looks like a web address. And you take that feed and then you input it into all those different platforms. So every time I upload a new episode in Spotify for Podcasters, what's amazing is, like magic, that just goes to all these other places. And so I don't have to go one by one to upload every single episode. So speaking of episodes, the second most important thing is your editing software and your equipment. To be honest with you, when it comes to the equipment, I did buy a very nice microphone. Again, I bought the same one that Joe Rogan and a lot of guys use. It's from a company called Shure, and it's fantastic. It's about $300. And that microphone is plugged into my iMac. I can also plug it directly into my MacBook Air. And believe it or not, I can even plug it into my iPad Pro 12.9. And I can literally record an episode like this on either one of those three devices. And then from there, I can edit it through GarageBand, which is another piece of software that's free on all Apple devices. And that's who I use to edit all the episodes. Okay, one of the most important things, or maybe not most important, but I think it's pretty important, is the cover art. What is that little box that shows up next to your podcast when people are looking for it? And so for that, I spent a good maybe 30 minutes looking all through Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and I basically looked at everybody's cover art, and I decided I wanted to go with, something very simple and a little bit bold, but something that just got the point across. And really, that's the title of the podcast, Deep Shallow Dive, and then my picture, so you know who I am. And so that's what I went with. I ended up picking the color orange as my backdrop because as I was scrolling through everything, I did not see any color orange. And so I thought, you know what? Orange is the new RayD. So then from there, in order to design that cover art, I leveraged Canva. I'm sure a lot of you use Canva. It's pretty amazing, actually. I'm a late adopter to Canva because I've always been a Photoshop guy and Illustrator, the Adobe programs. But Canva was amazing. I went in there and probably in about 20 minutes or 30 minutes, I created almost 15 versions of my cover art and then decided on using the one that you see on my episode. So that's Canva. That helped me with the cover art. And now I want to talk about some more super cool AI websites and companies that I used in addition to ChatGPT. And we're going to get back into ChatGPT as well, because I literally use ChatGPT on every single episode that I do. One of the next cool companies that I used is a company called 11 Labs. And what's cool about 11 Labs, and you probably have heard 11 Labs without even knowing, but they are probably the number one company when it comes to speech synthesization. Yikes, I don't even know if that was a word. I'm going to leave that in. By the way, I'm going to leave some mistakes in. I'm not perfect, so my podcast doesn't need to be perfect either. Anyway, 11 Labs is awesome. You know, a lot of the simulated voices that you hear, whether it's Joe Rogan or there's actually some really funny stuff with Biden and Obama and Trump, where obviously it's not their real voice, but it's synthesized. That's all 11 Labs. And the voice you hear at the beginning of my podcast where it says, the following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production. That is an AI synthesized voice via 11 Labs. Okay, real quick, I have to say this. The scary part about it is I do think something like 11 Labs is going to cause havoc in the upcoming election. So 11 Labs is incredibly cool for that. There's another company that I've used called Swell AI, and they are awesome because they allow me to upload my podcast, and then they give me a lot of descriptions and a lot of ways to make posts on social media. Okay, this is pretty wild. So I was just Googling to, get a clear description about Swell AI. And ironically now, Google, if you didn't know, they have a competitor, or their competitor to ChatGPT, and it's called Bard. And they've already started to incorporate that into Google search. And so Bard is getting incorporated into search, and it's turning into what they're calling generative AI, which is basically Google search using artificial intelligence to really take it to the next level. And it's telling me Swell AI is an AI-powered tool that helps podcasters and YouTubers convert their audio and video content into written articles. So how funny is that? I'm using Bard, which is Google's AI search. Well, I shouldn't even call it search. It's their generative AI tool in order to tell you about Swell AI, which is the AI tool I'm using to help me write my show notes and description and all that. Wow. How do you like them apples? Okay, let's get into the next program. It's called Auphonic, Auphonic. And this is a really cool company. I think they're based in Canada. But basically, once I download the high-resolution WAV file from GarageBand, I take it into Auphonic, and Auphonic does an amazing job of balancing out all the levels and making sure the volume's all consistent. It removes some pauses and really does some magic to the recording. And then I download that again, and that secondary download from Auphonic is what I load up into Spotify for podcasters. And that, my friends, is literally what you're listening to right now. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much it. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot. It's a lot of work, and it's definitely something that takes patience, and you refine it over time. But there's a Steve Jobs quote that I love, and at some point I have to try and add that to one of these. And he says, when you come to the realization that everything you experience in this life was created by somebody no smarter than you, and you too can create anything you want, that's a truly powerful feeling and statement. And so for me, I've been wanting to do this for so long, and finally I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I sat down and I put the time in and I invested. I called up a couple really good friends who have podcasts. Thanks to Dave Schwab. Thanks to Nancy Walters. Appreciate the both of you for sharing your insights with me. And so I wanted to pay it forward and share my insights with you guys and let you know that if there's ever something you need, and if you want to start a podcast, you are more than welcome to hit me up, and I promise you I will give you the template and the guide, and I'll save you an absolute ton of time. So there you have it, the RayD guide to starting a podcast. All right, I did go over 10 minutes, so this is kind of a tweener. By the time it's all said and done, I think we'll be at around 15 minutes, so this one might fall under a deep shallow dive versus the 712. But regardless, I appreciate you listening. I hope it was informative. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And last but not least, remember to always call a spade a spade. All right. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
This episode was brought to you by Boost Liquid Vitamins. Wake up, take your Boost, start your day. Drink your vitamins, build your immune system with Boost. Available on Boost.com.